Hey, listen up, Falcons Nation. What I'm about to tell you right now is going to make your jaw hit the floor, and if you've been riding with this team through every high, every heartbreak, every moment you almost walked away, this is your reward. Something happened in Atlanta this week that nobody saw coming at this magnitude. A general manager barely 4 months into the job just wrote a check that sent shockwaves across the entire NFL. A player who spent years being doubted, mislabeled, underutilized, a player whose career had more question marks than answers, just landed one of the most significant contracts in the history of his position. And the reaction? Pure chaos. Radio hosts are losing their minds. Local media is at war with itself. Half of Atlanta is celebrating in the streets. The other half thinks the front office just went off the rails. So who's right? Who's wrong? And what does this really mean for the Dirty Birds heading into 2026? Buckle up, because we're breaking it all down. The money, the doubts, the vision, and the one question that will define this franchise for the next 5 years. Rise up, Atlanta. Everything just changed. Listen up, Falcons Nation. What I'm about to tell you right now is going to make your jaw hit the floor, and if you've been following this team through every up, every down, every heartbreak, and every moment where you almost gave up, this is your reward. Because something happened in Atlanta this week that nobody, and I mean nobody, saw coming at this magnitude. A general manager who's been on the job for barely 4 months just wrote a check that sent shockwaves through the entire NFL. A player who spent years being doubted, mislabeled, underutilized, a player whose career had more question marks than a philosophy exam, just got handed one of the most significant deals in the history of his position. And the critics? Oh, the critics are screaming. Radio hosts are losing their minds. Local media is at war. Half of Atlanta is celebrating. The other half says the front office just lost the plot. So who's right? Who's wrong? And what does this really mean for the Dirty Birds heading into 2026? Buckle up, because we're about to break it all down: the money, the doubts, the vision, and the one question that will define this franchise for the next 5 years. Rise up, Atlanta. This is your team. And everything just changed. Let's start with the facts, cold, hard, undeniable facts. On June 23rd, the Atlanta Falcons made one of the biggest financial commitments in franchise history for a non-quarterback offensive player. A 3-year extension worth up to $54 million, with $36 million fully guaranteed over the first 2 seasons. That's not a contract. That's a declaration of faith. And here's the thing that makes this story even more electric. Just months ago, this player was sitting on a franchise tag, a 1-year, $15 million placeholder that essentially said, "We're not sure yet." The tag is a mechanism the league provides to teams that need time. Time to watch. Time to evaluate. Time to decide. Well, the new Falcons regime watched. They evaluated. They decided. And what they decided is this: Kyle Pitts is not going anywhere. The franchise tag is null and void. Dead on arrival. Kyle Pitts, tight end, freak athlete, human cheat code, is a Falcon through 2029. Let that sink in, Falcons Nation. 2029. That means whoever wins the quarterback battle this summer, whoever emerges as the face of this offense for years to come, they're going to have Kyle Pitts catching passes for them. And if you know anything about what Pitts can do when he's unlocked, when he's schemed correctly, when he has a real offensive mind designing plays for him, then you already know what this could mean. But not everyone is celebrating. And that's where this story gets real interesting. Ian Cunningham arrived in Atlanta less than 4 months ago. Less than 4 months. And in that time, he has already reshaped this franchise's financial landscape in ways that are making the entire league take notice. Drake London? Locked up. For years, $141 million. One of the most explosive wide receivers in the NFC, secured. Kyle Pitts? Now locked up through 2029. 54 million reasons to believe in the tight end position in Atlanta. This is a general manager operating with urgency, with conviction, with a clear offensive philosophy that says, we are building something here, and we are not waiting around for the perfect moment to pay our playmakers. Think about what Cunningham said back in February, sitting at Radio Row at the NFL Scouting Combine, when he announced the franchise tag, "We're not in the business of letting go of really good players." That wasn't just a quote for the press. That was a promise. And 4 months later, he kept it. The franchise tag was never the destination. Cunningham himself said it, the tag was a mechanism, a placeholder, a chance for a brand new front office, a brand new coaching staff, a brand new regime to sit down, watch film, run practices, have meetings, and answer the most important question in roster construction. Is Kyle Pitts actually who we think he is? And after months of minicamp, OTAs, meetings, and film sessions, the answer came back with a resounding, unmistakable, check-clearing yes. Here's what makes this story truly incredible, Falcons Nation. It's not just the money. It's what they saw that justified the money. Head coach Kevin Stefanski has been in the NFL long enough to know the difference between talent and transformative talent. And when he talks about Kyle Pitts, listen carefully to the words he chooses. Kyle's a guy that is here working like crazy. Takes coaching. Obviously, the physical skill set is obvious when Kyle's on the field, with how big he is and how he moves. But I've been impressed with what we're asking him to do, a couple new things for him. Work ethic, coachability, physical tools, a willingness to evolve. That's the formula, Falcons fans. That is exactly what you want to hear from your head coach about a player you're about to invest $36 million guaranteed into. But it gets better. Offensive coordinator Tommy Rees, a man who has spent his career developing elite offensive talent, described Pitts as a great veteran operating at an extremely high level of buy-in. His exact words, "Kyle's a great example of the buy-in being at an extremely high level right now." Buy-in. In a new system. Under a new staff. With a new philosophy. That is not the profile of a player who's checked out. That is not the profile of a player who's coasting on reputation. That is the profile of a player who knows his moment is coming and is doing every single thing he can to be ready for it. Passing game coordinator Tanner Engstrand went even further. "I think Kyle is going to be a big piece of this thing. He had huge production last year. He's clearly one of the top guys in the league at that spot. One of the top guys in the league." And then there's Kevin Koger, Kyle Pitts' tight ends coach, the man who's been in the trenches with him, rep after rep, route after route. Koger said something that stopped me cold. "You forget how talented these guys are, especially Kyle. You walk next to him and you're like, wow. I am 6'4" on the nose and I am looking up at him a lot of the time. There are moments out on the field where he runs around. He does things where you're like, that's not normal." That's a coach, a trained professional evaluator, looking at his own player and saying he's witnessing something supernatural. And that is why the Falcons wrote that check. But here's the thing about big moves, they always come with big opinions. And Atlanta has opinions for days. Matt Kernoff from 680 The Fan, one of Atlanta's most prominent sports voices, didn't hold back. His reaction to the Pitts extension was brutal and direct. "I just lost a lot of faith in Ian. I'm not happy about this. You're going to have another year where this guy disappears when Drake's on the field." That's a strong take. And look, it comes from a real place. Kyle Pitts' career has been complicated. He arrived in Atlanta in 2021 as the most physically gifted tight end prospect the league had ever seen. The numbers in his rookie year? Historic. The expectations? Stratospheric. And then, injuries, inconsistency, offensive system problems, quarterback instability. The production dipped. The frustration grew. The fan base started asking hard questions. But Mark Zeno at 92.9 The Game raised a different concern entirely, one that goes beyond just Kyle Pitts. Zeno pointed out that Ian Cunningham has now committed massive money to two pass catchers, London and Pitts, without fully resolving the quarterback situation first. And without yet paying Bijan Robinson, arguably the most consistent, most reliable offensive weapon on the entire roster. Ian Cunningham has now paid 2 pass catchers top dollar without having any certainty at QB, but has yet to address the one absolute certainty on this roster, Bijan Robinson. That's a fair point. That's a point that Falcons fans should be thinking about, because it reflects a very specific philosophy about how you build an offense. Does Cunningham's approach make sense? Let's think about it. The Falcons are heading into training camp with a quarterback competition between Michael Penix Jr. and Tua Tagovailoa. Neither one has the job locked up. Neither one is the undisputed franchise signal caller. But both of them, whoever wins, now gets to throw to Drake London and Kyle Pitts, with Bijan Robinson in the backfield. That's not a supporting cast. That's a weapons locker. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly the point. Maybe Cunningham's message to his quarterback competition is this: I'm giving you everything you need to succeed. The weapons are in place. The talent is locked up. Now go out there and earn it. But let's talk about the X factor here. Because Kyle Pitts isn't just a tight end. He never has been. And Kevin Stefanski, the architect of this new offensive system, understands that better than anyone. When Stefanski talked about Pitt's role in this offense, he didn't describe a conventional blocker. He didn't describe a red zone target. He described something much more dangerous. Kyle's a good football player. I think there's all sorts of different jobs he can do: inline tight end, line up in the backfield, line up outside. Inline. In the backfield. Outside. Do you understand what that means, Falcons Nation? It means Kyle Pitts is a matchup nightmare for every single defensive coordinator in the NFC. Because you can't cover him with a linebacker, he's too fast. You can't cover him with a safety, he's too big and too physical at the catch point. You can't cover him with a cornerback without leaving your receiver coverage compromised. And Stefanski added something even more important: he's not asking Pitts to reinvent himself. It's not putting Kyle in positions that he hasn't been in already, but it's quarter turn adjusting a few of them and maybe utilizing a few different route techniques. Quarter turn adjustments. That's coaching genius talking. That's a head coach saying, I'm not blowing up what this player does. I'm refining it. I'm taking something already excellent and making it elite. That is a recipe for a breakout season, Falcons fans. And after everything Kyle Pitts has been through, every criticism, every doubter, every season that didn't go as planned, the man is hungry. His tight ends coach said it best: last season is already in the rearview mirror. The new regime doesn't care what happened in 2025. They only care about what happens next. And what happens next? Kyle Pitts is locked in. Kyle Pitts is motivated. Kyle Pitts is surrounded by a coaching staff that believes in him, a quarterback competition that will push this offense to its absolute limit, and weapons all around him that make him impossible to game plan against. The Falcons are not rebuilding. The Falcons are not hoping. The Falcons are building, deliberately, aggressively, with a plan, and Kyle Pitts is at the center of that plan all the way through 2029. Falcons Nation, here's what we know. Ian Cunningham came to Atlanta with a vision. In less than 4 months, he locked up Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and set this franchise on a path that says, loudly, clearly, without hesitation, we are here to win. Will it work? Will the quarterback competition produce the answer this team needs? Will Bijan Robinson get his deal next? Will this weapons-loaded offense under Kevin Stefanski finally unlock what we all know Atlanta is capable of? Those questions are coming. Those storylines are building. And we are going to cover every single one of them right here on this channel, every signing, every training camp battle, every press conference that matters. So if you are not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications. Because the 2026 Atlanta Falcons season is shaping up to be unlike anything this fan base has ever experienced. Kyle Pitts is a Falcon through 2029. The weapons are in place. The coaching staff believes. And Falcons Nation, it is time. Go Falcons!